is the sound of my voice, front and center, from the listening position. This is the sound of my voice from the front left corner of the listening position. This is the sound of my voice from the front right corner of the listening position. This is the sound of my voice to the left of the listening position. This is the sound of my voice to the right of the listening position. And with a warm welcome back to New Record Day, let's have some fun. So, shortly after embarking on my journey with the Sound Shed, ATS Acoustics reached out, expressing their appreciation for my videos and proposing a collaboration on projects related to room acoustics. Recognizing the significance of optimizing the Sound Shed, we devised a strategic plan using some of ATS Acoustics' products to help control the space. ATS has played a pivotal role in bringing this series to fruition and is proudly sponsoring today's video. So, whether you're contemplating the creation of a space similar to the Sound Shed or seeking to enhance your current room, I cannot emphasize enough the importance of acoustic treatment. Collaborating with ATS for all the treatment they provided has proven to be one of the wisest decisions I have ever made in my decade of reviewing high-fidelity gear. If you find yourself in need of assistance or have any inquiries, feel free to reach out to them via email or phone call. All the links that you need to ATS will be provided down below in the description box. And again, a massive thanks to ATS for sponsoring this series. All right, it is really cold outside. Well, are you coming? Let's go. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, there is a lot of reverb in here right now, but hang tight. It will get better, I promise. So, the time has finally come. Not only am I going to tackle the Sound Shed's acoustics, but I'm also going to take you fine folks on the adventure with me. Before we get started, I wanted to let you know that we have packed a lot of goodies into this experience, and it might be a little lengthy for one sitting. For your convenience, I have chaptered the entire video with timestamps, which you can find in the description box down below, as well as in the comments section. So, feel free to process this monster of a video in chunks or skip around to the parts that you are most interested in. Also, it's best if we take a brief moment to discuss a couple of things that you should know before we get started. So the concept of this video is to demonstrate the effects of acoustic treatment in a listening room. Using binaural recordings, these demos will be immersive as long as you are using headphones. The video begins with demos in the Sound Shed without any treatment added, except for a couple of things that need to be mentioned for the sake of integrity and transparency. First, on the top right and left sides, where the walls meet the ceilings, you can see that I have some panels attached, which are some GIK tri-traps that I've had for many years. It took forever to get these things installed, and I'm really concerned that if I start trying to take these down, it might compromise just how clean that installation is right now, so I'm not going to risk it, and those guys are going to stay exactly where they're at. Second, and we made a video about this already, but the door to the Sound Shed does have some diffusers fixed to it, and there is no way in the world those things are coming off. Also, as I thought through the recording of this video, I was tempted to alter and change the volume of some of the demos, which would kind of level everything out. And I gotta be honest, there's gonna be some parts in here that are gonna be pretty low in volume. But for the sake of sonic purity, I decided to leave the volume alone so the volume changes in the demo are true to life and convey the actual dynamics heard in the shed. So, you might need to adjust the volume from time to time on your end. as you start playing out some of the sound demos that we recorded. The last thing that I wanted to mention, while there are many chapters in this video, the overall breakdown consists of really 4 primary segments. Segment number 1, the room completely empty, like it is right now, or as empty as we can get. Segment number 2, measuring the empty room and discussing what those measurements mean to us. Segment number 3, setting the room up with practical furniture, decorations, and even rugs. Segment number 4, measuring the furnished room and comparing the differences between the empty space and the furnished space. So yeah, we got a lot to cover, and my goodness, it is gonna be a blast. All right, so clearly there's a lot of reverb in this room, and it got me thinking, what would happen if I put some rice in a small little container like this, shake it, and then simply walk around you? And as we start treating this room, what's going to change, and what are we going to hear? Is it going to be easier to tell exactly where I'm at as I walk around you as we start treating this listening room? Well, there's only one way to find out. So the decibel meter is reading in the 40s. I don't know how accurate this particular decibel meter is, but it's still going to illustrate a point, and that is the door behind you right now is wide open. Not only is the door wide open, but there's some other noises going on inside the sound shed that we're going to talk about next after I close the door. So let me do that first. So if this decibel meter is accurate, it looks like we just dropped the noise floor by 5 or 6 dB, somewhere around there. But it's still pretty dang noisy in here. The reason why is that my mini split, which is on heat right now, it's very cold outside, is actually turned on high. This is as loud as that mini split gets, and right now it's pretty dang loud. So I'm going to let you listen for just a second, and then I'm going to turn it off. Now from where I am right here, the only thing that I hear is the fan that is running inside of my Canon C200, which I'm filming on, and there's no way for me to turn that off. If I did, it would be even quieter in here, but you can tell that it is really dang quiet inside the sound shed. I know the reverb is insanely annoying. Hang in there, we're almost done. So let's get this part right. No one in their right mind would ever take the time to build out a listening room like this and stop right here. It only makes sense that with this empty space, we would add practical things to the room and make it more inviting, and of course, help tame this insane reverb that we are dealing with right now. Now, before we do this, we need to collect a couple of quick data points to help us see what we are hearing, and more important, understand how it changes as we move items into this space. So, keeping this as simple as possible, I'm going to be using REW, which is a free program called Room EQ Wizard. I'm also going to be using a USB microphone, which in my case is the Mini DSP branded UMIC 1. There's going to be a number of different ways that you can connect this to your system, but I have found the easiest setup for me is to simply connect a USB cable from my computer into my MADAC, and just like that, we are good to go. And here's a pro tip. Get yourself a really long USB cable, so that way you can stay far behind the listening position as you're taking measurements. You'll thank me later for this, so you're not having to run back and forth. You can just sit there and take measurements until your heart is content. As soon as we start REW, we will be prompted about the USB microphone, and it will ask if you would like to load a calibration file for the mic. After loading the calibration file, you will want to click on Preferences and make some adjustments here. First, in my case, since I am using the MADAC as my sound card or output device, I'll want to first select this in the drop-down menu as shown. Next, I'll want to verify that the input device is a UMIC 1 microphone and choose whether I would like to measure the left or right speaker first in the options down below. Last, you can click on the Check Levels tab and make sure your signal is strong enough from the amplifier, and REW will let you know if you are loud enough to proceed. Now look, I totally understand. There are many different things that you could do in REW that are often talked about, such as sound card calibration and decibel calibrations. And while I'm not trying to deter you from investigating those options, I don't think it's necessary for what we are looking for. Feel free to press the start button and let's take a look at what we have. So yeah, pretty simple, right? Any questions? Are you kidding me? This is a complete mess. But before you freak out, I am here to help. First things first. If you notice, there are some check-marked boxes below this measurement. Feel free to uncheck phase along with the mic meter box. We don't need to view that information. Second, at the top of the menu bar, click on Graph, and with a list of smoothing options, take your pick, and just like magic, you just took your first in-room response. While I don't think that it's critical to pick one specific smoothing option over the other, I like using 1/3 smoothing for room measurements, and that will do just fine for this demonstration. Now, let's take a second measurement, but this time choose the opposite speaker from the one that you have already measured. You can do this in the output section as shown in this screenshot. And once again, go ahead and select your smoothing for this speaker, and when complete, you can simply click on the overlay button in the top toolbar if you want to see both of the speaker measurements at the same time. All right, at this point, we have our left and right speaker measurements in the room, and when combined, we call this a frequency response. At the far left of the screen, we can see 20 Hertz, and to the far right, 20,000 or 20 kilohertz. Now, if this isn't what you see, feel free to click on the Limits button in the top right and make the corrections here. While we're at it, let's change the SPL top to 100 decibels and the SPL bottom to 50 decibels. Now, without obsessing how this measurement looks and dive into the details, let's just keep this as a starting point and move on to another tab in REW that we'll be looking at as well. At the top of the bar, I'm going to click on the RT60 Decay tab, and let's change the octave band to 1/6, and then click on Calculate RT60 Value. Otherwise known as reverb times, the RT60 graph is showing us the time required for sound to decay by 60 decibels. Now, this could very easily turn into a complex conversation, but like we did with the frequency response, let's not get stuck on the details and simply consider this graph as a starting point. And yes, our starting point, which is shown in that little red line, is letting us know our RT60 times in this room are as high as 1.5 seconds or 1500 milliseconds in some areas of the bandwidth. Last but not least, feel free to click on Waterfall and feast your audiophile eyes on the longest trails of reverb the world has ever seen. All of those long trails are nothing but the sound of this room and reverb. This is the sound of my voice, front and center from the listening position. This is the sound of my voice from the front left corner of the listening position. This is the sound of my voice from the front right corner of the listening position. This is the sound of my voice to the left of the listening position. This is the sound of my voice to the right of the listening position. One of the questions that you might have is, as we've moved in practical furniture into the sound shed, whether or not all of these things have an impact on how quiet the environment is. So let's go ahead and do this test again, but this time I have the camera further away from the microphone so we're not hearing that fan inside the camera. Here we go. It's very quiet, and I can still hear the fan. Hopefully, you're getting an idea of how quiet it is inside the sound shed.
Staying at home, turn off the phone, I will listen to you.
I lose my breath whenever I see you. You stole my heart, what is it that you do? My life was great till you added colors.
And just like that, we have made it to segment 4, where once again we can measure the loudspeakers in the room and make some comparisons of what we saw in the empty space compared to the furnished environment. Having saved our previous measurements, it's easy to use the overlay button that I have mentioned before to make these comparisons. As an example, here is the first measurement we took of the sapphires, and here is an overlay of the new measurements. Just to make it easier to see, this is of the left speaker only. As we can see in orange, the overall response, especially in the midband, is starting to level out. Now, taking a look at our RT60 times, this is where things get pretty interesting. Remember, we were sitting as high as 1500 milliseconds before, and now we are looking closer to 1 second or 1000 milliseconds. Last, let's take a look at the original mess that we called a waterfall and compare it with what we are seeing now. Okay, so now we can see taking those first measurements in the empty room are actually starting to make sense as we compare them with what we have now. The frequency response is starting to level out, the RT60 times are being reduced, and that waterfall is starting to take shape. So yeah, I guess we're done here, right? I mean, you can at least carry on a conversation in here, and it's obvious that a lot of that nasty reverb has been taken care of, so I guess this is now a great environment for critically listening to music and reviewing gear. No, it's not. Look, I want to approach this with as much humility as I can. And it is entirely possible that some folks might find joy listening to music in a room like this right now. But having been down the road that we are about to travel in these upcoming videos, I can say with great confidence that right now all we're doing is taking a match to an ice cube that is sitting on top of an iceberg. It would be a shame for someone to put so much effort and work into a room like this and call it a day. There is so much for us to enjoy as we really start treating this room. The bass is smeared and boomy. The lower mid-range is washed and very diffused. The upper mid-range and treble is impossible to track, and there is very little coherent staging going on throughout the soundstage. The entire bottom half of the bandwidth is heavy, and the top half of the bandwidth is blurred and unfocused. So, as far as I'm concerned, this is not a proper listening room and certainly not a proper room for reviewing hi-fi equipment. But don't worry, my friends. I will see you acoustic treatment loving audiophiles in the next video, which is next week. Subscribe. This is about to get really good.